And I'm going to turn it over to Lucy. Your turn.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Reality Therapy Corner. We meet here every fourth Tuesday of the month, except this month because
Thanksgiving.
of Thanksgiving, and we changed it today, the 29th, and for next month, December, the fourth Tuesday ends up in the holiday weekend. So we're going to skip the month of December and meet again after this meeting in January, and you'll get plenty of notices about that. You know, life happens, and at this meeting every fourth Tuesday, I host this meeting and talking about reality therapy here at the Reality Therapy Corner, and we have a special guest that leads our discussions and conversations. And our special guest today is Mona Durkin. Did I get the name right? Durkin. Duncan. I have a high school friend that I went to school with. She was Mona Gherkin. And every time I say Mona Duncan, it comes out Gherkin. But Mona last night realized she needed to go to Austin for an issue with some eye surgery she had last week. So she's not with us today, but in her memory, I'm going to help lead the conversation and hope each one of you will be our special guest today to continue talking about reality therapy. And Mona was going to talk to us about people that were incarcerated and some people might consider difficult clients. And so I thought maybe we would just kind of start there. And I was thinking that the concept of difficult clients doesn't match what I teach about choice theory and reality therapy, which is to label clients, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it also says that I don't trust my process to work with some clients versus other clients. So in reality, our little write-up this time was a little off base for us here in reality therapy. So considering that, I want to start with one question for you guys to talk about. And let me get, I also have had cataract surgery. So now I have to have glasses to read. And all my life I've had to have glasses to see. Now it's just the opposite way around. So in the book, Choice Theory, Counseling with Choice Theory, Dr. Glasser writes, the continuing goal of reality therapy is to create a choice theory relationship between the client and the counselor. So my opening question for discussion today is, how does having a perception of a client being difficult or a perception of the client's behavior being difficult help or hurt our goal to create a choice theory relationship?
Good question.
Isn't that a good question?
Yeah.
I stayed up a whole 10 minutes to get last night to get that one together.
So Lucy, I was intrigued with what you were talking about, and I looked up the definition of difficult, just because I do that occasionally when I know what a word means, but I want to see what Webster or someone else says about it. And needing much effort or skill to accomplish, deal with, or understand, or someone, a person, not easy to please or satisfy. And I got to thinking about your question with choice theory and a client and my working relationship with them. If I come into the relationship automatically thinking that they're a difficult client, I have sabotaged my own self. And I know that that is not going to help me. And so I am constantly challenging myself in my mind. Maybe the words don't come out of my mouth, but in my mind, do not take someone else's label and put it on this person. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what probation has said. It doesn't matter what community corrections has said. Information is relevant. I don't want to form my opinion of them based on what other people have told me. Sometimes I find that I actually tell the person that at times, depending if it's going to help the relationship. And I find that when I am non-judgmental and I'm not labeling them as difficult, or just because you're incarcerated, there's something wrong with you, that I get farther along with them.
Yeah. I have a
Why
little,
would we assume that a person coming out of incarceration or in incarceration would be more difficult than any other client? Why do we assume that?
Good point.
don't you believe it has to do with what our own ideas and perceptions are of incarcerated people?
Mhm.
And if it's a negative one, if we've had trauma or difficult times or any other label you want to give it, with people who have a rap or a history of being in prison, then that may stick with us. It may be our personal bias.
Yeah, I spent most of my counseling career counseling persons who had committed domestic violence, which is a heinous crime in itself. But I found that choice theory was perfect for them because it stressed the fact that they had the choice as to what they did and how to have a good relationship. And so that's what I taught in the, we had a year-long session, 52-week session with them. And basically what I was teaching is how to get along with their spouse, no matter what their spouse was doing or saying. And that it was their choice on how they acted. And it fit perfectly with choice theory.
So George wrote in the chat, I'm not a therapist, but rather than saying someone is difficult, I find I do better saying I have difficulty dealing with this person. So I'm wondering if we claim someone is difficult as if we're blaming or we're minimizing or we're denying something. I just don't like doing that. And I agree with what Tom said.
I like what George said also, but it's even with that perception, it changes our relationship with them.
Absolutely.
Maybe. Now, here's another thing. Could it change a relationship to the better?
I think so.
How would
The first time I encountered Dr. Glasser, which was, about 30 years ago, he was talking to a group of educators, many of whom were working with youngsters from low-income communities or so-called disadvantaged families. And he said, if you're working with those kinds of kids, your job as an educator is that much easier. And people were surprised. They were sure he meant to say, your job is more difficult with those children. And he went on to explain the basic needs. And he said, if the youngsters you're working with are not getting those basic needs met sufficiently where they live, but if they get it from you, you have the basis for a very powerful relationship through which you can challenge them to try things and learn things that they might not otherwise attempt. So his point was that if you understand, your job can actually be easier with clients that you might think would be more difficult.
And you have to model choice theory yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I found was the best teacher to my clients, was in modeling it myself for them in the classroom or in the counseling room.
Sort of relating back to what George said as well, not just modeling, but taking the responsibility of your side of the relationship by saying it's how you see them rather than who they are. Yeah, Wendell, go ahead, darling.
I don't know if any of you remember or saw the 5 videotapes that were done at Lehigh University. And there were several of the big name people, and 5 major psychotherapists were invited, and they each did a present. It may have been, I don't know if it was a 5-day thing or what, but each did a presentation of their psychology, their approach to helping people, what have you. And then they each did a role play. And the PhD students there put together a client scenario. This piece from this one and this piece from this. And they got a trained actress who studied the the characteristics, and then she played the client for each of these mega presenters, and had the information so she could sound very genuine. Okay. Interestingly enough, the other 4 read the file folder on the person, like from the intake. Glasser said, no, thank you. He didn't, and I guess this is what you were saying a while ago, Vicky. He didn't want to know what the issue was. He wanted to take them just as they came into him too. And so that was an interesting, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it does avoid that maybe any kind of prejudgment or pre-labeling or what have you too. So those tapes may be available for somewhere. And this
Yeah.
was like, was it?
They're not available when, Wendell,
Okay.
they went into a court case
Oh,
that because of the differences from what people said about Glasser and about one of the other people, and it got tied up in a court case and has never been released.
okay. Well, that's good information for me, but the point there was that, that not knowing before the person comes in. I do have a question, and Lucy and I did a good number of workshops under the label of dealing with difficult people. And they went quite well, and it was choice, Tom, it was choice theory based, and you're teaching that and that sort of thing. And people loved it, and I did well. And then Lucy at one time had a conversation. She said, well, I don't think there anybody available. And that's thought provoking. And I'm taking that in. Now, I would like to ask you, when each of you, probably all of you, or but many of you have done a workshop, and you had to submit a workshop title, and you had to give objectives for the workshop, learning pieces, the people will leave knowing this or what have you. And of course, a workshop title might be dealing with domestic violence, or dealing with drug and alcohol clients and so forth. What could you say instead of dealing with difficult people, if as your workshop title? I'm thinking about that for myself right now too.
Yeah, it's a good question. But Bob Wobbling does a role play pretty consistently. I've seen him do it at least 7 or 8 times, of working with a group of difficult people, but he doesn't ask them to be difficult people. He asks them to behave in difficult ways. So he moves it to behavior. It's still just a slight external look at it, but that's one way he does it. And through the years, people have called and asked me to do a workshop on working with difficult people. And I said, I'll be glad to, but you won't like it, because I'm going to start off saying there's no such thing as difficult people. And
but that's what makes that such a great title,
yeah,
because it's going to attract the people who most need that.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, what is it, or who says that children aren't being difficult? There's some phrase out there or saying about kids that are being difficult. I always say my kids aren't being difficult. They're just trying to get their needs met, and they don't know how to do it yet.
Well, another way to say that, Vicky, is that there's no such thing as misbehavior. There's only behavior. And I
Right.
call it misbehavior when I don't care for it.
Right.
And I don't care for it. Okay.
Yeah, when it doesn't suit me,
Yeah.
it's misbehavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Following George's lead there, you could call it something, dealing with difficult people, and then as a little attention getting phrase, would you all do me a favor, get your brochure out that describes the workshop, scratch through dealing with difficult people.
Yeah.
It's there are no difficult people, scratch through that, and you'd have an interesting juxtaposition here catching their attention, too. But I like that part about dealing with behaviors, that sort of thing. But this is a good discussion because it's if we go to the core beliefs of choice theory. Oh, I know what I was going to say. People say, he's not motivated. Well, it's the same thing Vicky just said a while ago. What that means is he's not doing what I want him to do. This kid is not motivated in my classroom. He's motivated to do whatever he wants to do.
Mhm.
And I need to try to find out what that is, try to, put something here and get a reading. I do a test here to get a reading on his quality world pictures, and then find out what he's motivated at, see if I can tie them together. But people are motivated, we're each motivated by what's a priority in our life. Let me throw in a quick thing. When I've been here in Florida 23 years. I lived in Atlanta for 15. That was my post 15 years from the Air Force. And my continuing education at that time, besides going to the annual reality therapy conference, was watching Montel and the daily talk shows. They were interesting. And it just struck me, a mother would come on with her teenage daughter, and her teenage daughter, who was 15, was dating a guy named Snake, who was 24, who had no job and did drugs. And the mother would just like this as Snake. And every time she did like this, it just took her and her daughter further apart. And so one of the ideas, I know I've heard Glasser say it if I get original, the one thing I do not want to do is criticize other people's quality world pictures, semicolon. So what do I do when their quality world pictures are things that are harmful or what have you? So it's a challenge, but if I just criticize it, if I'm making no headway, we're right back to the creating the relationship too.
Mhm.
I have something I want to share based on this on incarcerated individuals and the labeling. I work in an industry that we do batterers intervention programming. So I work with men and women who have been accused, or it's been identified, or they've been arrested, convicted of battery, domestic battery, strangulation, just all the horrible things out there that you can get in the legal world. So the perception of the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence is that these men need to come into group every week and say, I'm a batterer and I strangled my wife. So this started back in 2005. And my trainer said that this is the way I had to do it. So he left for a 6 months tour somewhere, and I was told to take over. So I was in leadership position. I had them come in and say their first name, their feeling word for the day, and I had a question for them. I quit labeling them. I quit having them say, I'm a batterer and this is what I did to my wife or my girlfriend or whatever. And I've been doing this now, however many years it is.
I wanted to get on to for
Somebody needs to be.
relationships.
Hold on.
Winchester.
Yeah.
So in explaining why I don't have the men repeat, I'd like to hear your suggestions. I have been not having them label themselves. I believe these men should have the opportunity to heal and to be defined by themselves, not their past. So how do I explain this to the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence, why I do not label?
Is it working for you?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Of course it's
story.
working.
More importantly, it's working for the men.
Yeah.
Sounds like a reframe, Vicky. Use the clinical word of reframing from identifying as a violent person to your day-to-day. different positive identity, seems like what you're finding.
If they think of themselves as that's who they are, then what choice do they have? It's themselves then, it's their nature, and what they can't choose anything else. But if they can say, I have battered, I am so-and-so and I battered women, then they have a chance to change their behavior.
Yeah, when I was doing mine, I had them explain what they did during the week, which said, this is current behavior, not past behavior. And that allowed them to present who they were at the time at each weekly session. And that allowed a lot more growth. And if they'd done something that was against the rules, that had been aggressive towards somebody else, I would ask them which one of the caring habits were they using.
I love that.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind, Vicki, when you ask that question, is that we cannot self-evaluate our labels. We can self-evaluate only our behaviors. If you ask me to evaluate myself as a mother, I'm just dumbstruck. I don't even know how to begin to do that. But if you ask me to evaluate my mothering behaviors, I can do that. I can say today I was a better mother than I was yesterday. My behavior was better today than it was yesterday. I can do that self-evaluation, and labels completely stop people from self-evaluating.
I agree.
You can't evaluate against a label. Or you can, I mean, what can you say? I'm the worst batterer in the world. That's not what the direction you're going in.
Brian Stevenson, who founded the Equal Justice Institute many years ago, has a phrase that he uses. He said, and he works with incarcerated folks, some of whom turn out to be innocent, some not. But he says, no one deserves to be known forever by the worst thing they ever did. And I think there's truth in that.
Ooh, I like it. Say that again, Steve. No one deserves.
I might not have it exactly right, but no one deserves to be labeled forever by the worst thing they ever did. And again, going along with this notion that several of you have mentioned of separating the behavior from the identity of the individual engaged in the behavior.
Yeah.
Well, it just reminds us of what Dr. Glasser said about labels, right? All we're doing is giving people a set of behaviors that they can use over and over again. So to answer your question, Vicki, when the people that want them to say that insist on it, maybe you could teach them that the labeling gives them a set of behaviors. Is that what you want those behaviors to continue? Just a
self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
Vicki, wouldn't it be interesting if one of the powers that be that set the kind of general guidance or specific things were to sit in on a session and see how effective they go for you without following their prescribed kind of format to see that.
It would be nice if they were open-minded.
Uh-huh.
Do I need to say any more?
Yeah, that's right.
Or
I would pay one of them to come and sit in with me.
for about 3 years, I worked in a hospital, only 2 nights a week. And on Monday night, I worked with children with the label battered children. And on Wednesday night, I worked with men who battered children. So on Tuesday, I did the exorcist thing every Tuesday of turning my whole head around completely in 360, to have to say in my head that the men on Wednesday night deserve my care and concern and respect as much as the children on Monday night did. It was such a learning experience for me to go through that process weekly over and over, because how I walk in perceiving the behavior of that person is an important role in my relationship. I'm going to mute because my dog is singing to my husband playing the piano. Can y'all hear it?
No.
No,
Okay. I'm
no.
going to mute.
So something
Lucy?
that Lucy said, one of the phrases that I use a lot with my clients is, it doesn't matter how tired I am, how worn out, how aggravated, or whatever emotion I want to put in there that I am, doesn't matter. My clients and my family deserve the best of me the minute I walk into their presence. And what I'm finding with these men that embrace this concept is that they're not going home any longer sulking, angry, sitting on the couch, drinking a beer, pouting, wanting to go to sleep. Some of them are coming back in and saying, I walk in my house now and I literally turn it on and let my family know this is the best of me and I'm going to give you my best because I only have 2 or 3 hours with you at night. And the label that they've put on their self seems to be changing when I ask them to think about being the best that they can be. So sometimes I'm coming home at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I've had a 14-hour day. My twin grandsons are there and I hang it all up. And you deserve the best of me while we're still awake. Doesn't mean I don't crash. But I think that this helps in the labeling when I find people are stuck with the label. What do you consider the best of you? What can you give? How can you give the best of you when you walk in that door? Any other suggestions?
One thing on the other side is that it seems to work for alcoholics in Alcoholics Anonymous, is continuing to label themselves as an alcoholic. But that's a disease, and angering is not a disease. So we can change angering, we can't change a disease that we have.
And the labeling, it seems to go in a lot with the AA and the NA community. I'm an addict. So frequently when I hear that in my work, because I have an outpatient substance use program that I do also, we look up the term addict and we read it from Webster. And I can say that I'm 39 years, 10 months and 28 days alcohol and substance free, because I'm not actively using. So I don't term myself as an addict. I don't give myself that label. And changing, Lucy, one of the things that I find in the incarcerated world is trying to get them to change their labeling of themselves because other people have given it to them. Other people have said, this is what you are.
Yeah.
And I think Glasser's work gives me the opportunity and others to say, we don't have to do that. I can change the way I word it so I'm not labeling me.
Yeah, it seems like the danger of labeling too is it just reinforces the deadly habit or habits. So why would you want to do that? And from the Glasser perspective, you're moving toward making a choice for connecting habits.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to kind of move us along to another question. I really love what the input and my special guest that I have today that's leading one of the other things that Glasser wrote in counseling with choice theory was I found three times that he wrote what the therapist's job is. And the first one was the task of the counselors to help clients choose new relationships, improving behaviors that come much closer to satisfying one or more of the basic needs, which is pretty standard knowledge to all of us here. The second one we started our conversation with. And the third one is this: The therapist looks for every opportunity to teach choice theory to the clients and their families so that everyone can begin the process of replacing external control psychology with choice theory. So my question to this is, what are your best ways or techniques or strategies for teaching choice theory to clients? Mona got, you noticed in the write-up, had a crash course in choice theory. And when she comes back, and we'll certainly invite her back and fit her into this program, she'll give you her crash course. She teaches it in the first meeting, choice theory, almost in complete detail, like a basic week in an hour kind of thing. So what's your best strategies and techniques and ways of getting the teaching in your therapies?
I used a lot of Glasser's 7 caring habits and deadly habits pretty quickly. I will also ask them what they choose to do. So when they come in and tell me all the issues, okay, what are you choosing to do right now? How are you choosing to respond to this? And so I get them to start talking about it. Someone put something in chat. Oh, George wrote, one of the secrets of Jerry, is it Weinberg's secrets of consulting is the buffalo bridle. You can get a buffalo to go anywhere you want as long as a buffalo wants to go there. And then Tom said, I wrote a book on what I do in the group room. It's happiness in the family that may help you tell those above you on how choice theory is different from other therapies. Tom, do you want to talk more about that?
No, not really. I've said much of what I did, although you're doing the same thing. I started in '94 using regular therapy, quote, regular therapy with my clients. And I found when I found choice theory in '02, immediately switched over and found the difference in how it was received by my clients, and the way they took to it and decided, yes, they can decide to be a different person. And when you walk through the training, basically what I was doing is giving a basic week for every one of the clients. That's what we do. We teach them what choice theory is all about, and continue to ask them to behave that way. It's most therapies are trying to figure out a problem, and choice theory is teaching you a new way of life, in my opinion. And if you can live that way of life, the choice theory way of life, then you will gain a lot of the happiness that Glasser talks about.
Tom, would you already have had your PhD at that time and practicing successfully?
Yes, I had.
Quickly, we had some of you may remember, we had a staff of psychologists in the psychology department run at one of the small Mississippi colleges. And I forget how they got turned on, but there were 3 or 4 of them that all with doctorate level degrees teaching psychology, all of them just glommed onto choice theory, and they all went and got certified. And it enriched what they were doing that was already successful into something even more so too. And that's one of the things that's so exciting to me, that very accomplished people, successful in their area, run across choice theory, reality therapy, and add in, the parts of that and feel like they're doing even more than they were before. It's phenomenal.
It was like the light came on.
Oh, wow. And
because it fits so perfectly with that behavior. It's a controlling behavior. Domestic violence is a controlling behavior.
Mhm.
And choice theory is first control yourself and how you behave. And so it just was perfectly designed for that kind of behavior.
I heard a journalist this morning who'd written a book about dictators. She was being interviewed on news. She said that 60% of the world population is currently under the thumb, so to speak, of a dictator, 60%. And that's what Glasser talked about, that external control psychology was the overwhelming norm and what have you, and trying to teach internal choice theory, too. And boy, it's an uphill battle, but
Well, as I say, you have to, particularly in the groups, you have to live it yourself too, to show them that it works, that it can be done. I had clients that did not accept it, and I just accepted them for who they were. The state said they had to attend 52 weeks. After they attended 52 weeks, I had to say that they had completed the course, and that was it. So they could go back into society and be a menace as they were. But the vast majority of the people accepted it, understood it, and decided that they didn't want to behave that way. They also found that a lot of their problems were that both they and their spouse were trying to be the controller. And that's where the physical battering came in. So a lot of them ended up leaving their spouses, which was their choice. And if the spouse couldn't change into a choice theory type person, you take a choice theory person with a control person, and the two are not going to work. So they would have to leave. Yeah, exactly. So I did not stress the point of staying with your spouse, because that was a dual choice between two people.
Nor did you stress them leaving either.
Nor did I did. It was I stressed that they needed to behave in the care using the caring habits, and if their spouse didn't, then they would have to make a choice one way or another. Were they going to stay with it for children's reasons, for whatever other reasons were there, but were they going to stay with that, understanding that until the spouse changed or decided to accept some of the caring habits, that they had to continue with the caring habits. They couldn't criticize and blame and complain about what the spouse was doing.
But those other habits are so alluring.
Oh,
So
yes.
they just bring you right. If you're criticizing me, I want to criticize you back. Man, they're so seductive, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Addictive. I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Because the cycle of violence, if you look at it, you have the abuse, you have the honeymoon state, which feels really, really good. Then you have tension building, and you have the outburst, and that becomes addictive. And there was a woman by the name of Robin Norwood who wrote a wonderful book called Women Who Love Too Much, which I often give to men as well, because it was amazing how she kept attracting people into her life that she was used to dealing with, because that's the way she grew up. But just to your point, Tom, when I first learned these ideas, I was living in a very destructive relationship. And I realized that I had become somebody that I did not even like. I didn't like myself. So when I learned these ideas and I heard Dr. Glasser speak, I decided that I was going to use only the caring habits in my relationship. That was it. And the more I stuck to that and became more the person I wanted to be, the stronger I became within. Still continuing to be caring and all the rest, but he just escalated. So it didn't take long for the relationship to end. So it's valid what you're saying, and that's a personal story. So.
Yeah. So I agree with what we're saying, that the quickest and easiest way to start teaching our clients about choice theory is through the caring habits and helping them see that those are choices. Are there other strategies or things that you use?
Goodness, Lucy, on my wall in my office, I have the 5 basic needs on a cute little poster that I got from Rochester years ago. And they're just sitting up there. And I have clients come in and they'll talk with me for a while. And all of a sudden I'll say, I see that up there. Can you explain that to me? And they want to know what that is. And then I teach it from there, just about every session, first session.
Yeah.
Just about every time.
When I did the Memphis City Schools, I taught 200 administrators in the Memphis City Schools, and most of them put the 4 questions of reality therapy in every classroom.
Yeah.
And once a teacher kind of went off on a little boy and he pointed to them and said, aren't you supposed to be doing that? So that visual is always good. Look at Wendell with the mat behind him, with the chart behind him. A lot of people have charts in their room and they can move that. And Dr. Glasser was real big on bibliotherapy. He wanted it to be his books, but he wanted people to read the books. Yeah. And so I took upon myself to read and reread and to teach that book, Choice Theory, Counseling with Choice Theory, and it's available on Mona's videos online. What is the name of that? Making Sense of It. There are 8 sessions about this, about counseling with choice theory there that I taught. I think, Maureen, you were in most of them.
Could be.
Could be. And I thought they were really good. But in that book, I had a really big learning for myself. When I've taught choice theory for a long time, I try to live an internal locus of control life. That's what we mean when we say a choice theory life, is that I try to live internally with myself and with others. But I really learned one thing, and that was that the symptoms people use, arguing, all the negative habits or the disconnecting habits, and the symptoms they use, the complaining, the whining, the aching, all of those, they actually do reduce pain. So they in themselves are self-addicting.
Yeah. Just
like we said, oh, it felt so great and it was so wonderful when we started living internally and doing the caring habits, and it felt good. But because those symptoms, even though they're harmful and hurtful and they destroy relationships, they do reduce the pain in the person doing them. And so I had to rethink about asking people to give up things that's reducing pain if they didn't have a replacement. And the replacement, of course, is the caring habits. So just getting that firmly in my mind that that symptoms and disconnecting habits do work to reduce pain really helped me get to be a better therapist in teaching choice theory to others.
You asked the question, what else do you do? I use Bob Wobbleding's WDEP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucy,
That works quite well.
Too, is the 4 questions of reality therapy. Is that what you were referring to a while ago?
What is that?
Well, Tom has mentioned the Wobbling WDEP. My sense was that was what you were saying, the 4 questions of reality therapy.
Yeah, so 4 questions of reality therapy, the procedures that lead to change is what Glasser called them. And Bob Wobbling calls them DEP.
WDEP.
WDEP. I left the W off. And that works. I never studied under Bob, so I didn't get those WDEP things. I got the procedures to lead to change, and that's the way I teach and taught it in the training. And so it would make sense that that's the way I would teach it and train it with a client until I got to Malaysia and Singapore, where people were not question askers. And then I had to look at it differently. And so both of those are verbs forms, the questions and the WDEP. So I moved it to some nouns to describe it so that they could see the process from their perception, so that they could then start asking questions. So there's a lot of there's some other people with different acronyms for it as well, but the procedures that lead to change.
Yeah, let me
A
go back.
lot of people have difficulty using questions in counseling. They want to just sit there and listen.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I get that all the time. You're different. And as far as I'm concerned, I take that as a compliment. I love it when they say that. You're different.
Or you ask the hard questions. That's why you pay the big bucks, right?
I actually got some tools today. Thank you. You know,
I want to go back for a second when you were talking about this behavior serving some purpose. Many years ago, Dr. Ron said that one of his favorite books of Glasser was Stations of the Mind. And other people were struggling with it. And it was one of Ron's favorite. And he would talk about the orders of perception and that sort of thing. All right, then Glasser wrote another book after that. It's probably maybe not available now. It was in paperback with a black glossy cover, and it was called Control Theory. And then he called that his reader-friendly version of the previous book that was quite involved technically, but he simplified it. And in chapter 7 of that book, there you go, Control Theory. And chapter 7, why choosing misery made sense. And that's a great discussion to have with people. You know, choosing depression, choosing this and that. So, well, what's the payoff? Maybe there's got to be some payoff. What would be the payoff? Well, we could go through this quickly and easily. People get a lot of attention from others. You know, Wendell, what's happening? You know, you look really sad today. Oh, it's a bad day today. Oh, tell me about it. Geez, everybody else has been walking past me and you, because you're empathic and caring, you stop and I get 20 minutes of your time. And then you say, never again. I'm not going to ask you ever again. But the interesting payoffs for it. So even that teaches people that behavior has got something for them a little bit. But what you've got is a way. Would you be interested in learning about ways to meet your needs without having this trouble or this problems from other people too? And so, and then of course, control theory then morphed into the book choice theory later on, but those three were kind of sandwiched together.
Yeah. A good while ago, I was working.
Comment? Can people hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't, let's see if I can I can let you see me.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, hold on, I'm not that good with these. Oh, well, I can't get it to, oh, that's the video. All right, I'm just gonna speak. I can't seem to get it off to get the camera to work. But on my name is Diane, and when you're talking about the symptoms that help reduce pain, and when you're talking about how is this depression working for you today, and that somehow that certain behaviors, that they work for people. I treat a lot of eating disorder clients, and early on, one of my clients who said that she didn't really want to get rid of her eating disorder persona. We often name the eating disorder to sort of separate it from the person. And she said, I don't really want to get rid of her completely because she was very useful. She called her she was very useful to me. She made me, and I said, oh, this is fascinating. Tell me more. And she said, she helped me be strong through difficult, she gave me strength. So whether that's the power and control, whether that's, they talk about, that eating disorders are often about control, but there was something, and then of course we lead into using choice theory to say, okay, well, what else is there out there to help you get that same feeling, so we can kind of push this eating disorder behaviors that are also very damaging to you, push them aside. But I think that goes along with, why is this, this depression's working for you today, or, this behavior has something, if it's reducing pain, or you're right, there is a purpose. And if we take the time to find that purpose and then introduce that, let's find something different, if we can. But I just wanted to add that I've seen it with eating disorders of all, strange things. Thank you.
Thanks for adding that. Several years ago, I was doing a workshop with Bob Wobbling, and someone in the audience, it was at it was not the faculty retreat, but it was at one of our conferences, I think. And someone in the audience, a faculty member, I'm pretty sure, asked me, how do I get people to know what things they have control over and what things they don't have control over? And I said, well, I don't do that in therapy. And because I was teaching the reality therapy process, I don't do that. It's not part of reality therapy. Oh yeah, they argued with me. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, it's not part of the procedures that lead to change. And then Bob said to me, they're talking about concepts. And as soon as he said it, I realized what I thought. And that is that we always stop therapy and counseling, that process that we're doing, and teach when we come to a concept. The concepts, you can't process somebody into believing something. You have to stop and teach them what they don't know. It's like, if I didn't know a thing about baking, I could never process or question somebody into becoming a good baker. There would have to be a stop to teach some of the basic concepts. So therapy has question asking, which that's my favorite part of it. It has teaching. It has lots of different, it has management in it. So all the ways we work with people are in the therapy session. So for me to stop and just plain teach choice theory is really very often part of the therapy that I'm doing. Someone will say, they'll say, I remember a little 9-year-old girl asking me, she wanted someone to read her mind and buy her a gift without her telling them. And I said, is that possible? Going right into my questioning processing. And she said, well, yeah, my dad does it all the time to my mother. So, I didn't get very far by processing it, where I'd get a much farther along in the session by stopping the processing or counseling and just plain teaching. And I think that Glasser did that a lot in his therapy as well. So that's my addition to that question. We have a little time here, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to wrap up for today. What were some things that were important to you today? What are some things you learned, or what's one more thing you want to add? Who will go first for us?
Am I still on? I've got pictures.
You are. And
Yeah,
you're
you are.
so cute. Look how cute you are.
Oh, goodness. I'm all right. Thank you. I liked that the labeling piece, when the part about not labeling, because I liked that it's a set of behaviors that can be used over and over again. And I had not heard that. So I hadn't picked up on that with the Glasser training that I've had. And so, and it does, and I believe, yes, it stops that process of self-evaluating. If you've already got the label, why bother? So many people come in to therapy with the all or nothing. Why bother? I'm already guilty. I'm already this. And they're so, out of sorts with that label. So I like that. I think that we shouldn't label. I agree with that completely.
And are you Diane? Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Diane, where are you from?
I live in Philadelphia, but I'm from New Orleans. So
I thought I heard a little Southern in there.
I think Southern accents can be like yours as well. So,
Uh-huh.
but I've been in Philadelphia for about 30 years and I haven't lost my accent.
Okay, nice to have you with us today. I
Thank
hope you'll keep coming back. Who else has a comment or a parting word, Wendell?
All right, first of all, I'd like to invite Diane, Carol, and Kathy to send me your email address. I think of mine is in the chat room there. It's a reminder to me, there's a phrase, psychoeducation, okay, as a therapeutic modality. I had a psychiatrist in charge of a mental health servicing facility in the suburb of Atlanta who told me he was stopping doing group therapy and he was just going to do choice theory education classes, teaching them choice theory, and that was going to just speed up the process of people taking more effective control of their life and the relationships and everything. So we all do that. We teach it and we're figuring out how to work it in there, and there's counseling procedures and teaching, but the teaching itself is just significant.
Yeah, Lucy, thank you, Wendell. I really like the bringing up the issue that misery is often used as a fulfillment to needs, and that you can talk about misery and it doesn't get any better. Usually the person becomes more miserable because it's working for them. I did want to respond to Lucy about one thing that she said last time that I was on, and that was that she would invite me to give a session on dying. And if that's still open for March, I'll do it.
You're on. We got you on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lucy, I'd like to add two things that I really liked about, or I loved the whole session today, but I wrote down, no one deserves to be labeled forever for the worst thing they did.
Yeah.
I need to put that on a poster in my office somewhere, maybe in all of them, so everyone could read that every time they come in. I thought that was just, yes, an aha moment. And then labeling. All we're doing is giving them a set of behaviors. Do I know that? Absolutely.
Yeah.
To hear it again and the way the person said it, I appreciate that. The last thing I want to share is in the chat room, I put a link for Giving Tuesday. Choice Theory, our Glasser Institute for Choice Theory is doing our first annual Giving Tuesday fundraiser on the wglasser.com website. You can scroll down. I encourage everyone to do what they can. Every $5, $10, $20, $1,000 is very, very helpful. Thank you very much. And Lucy, you do an amazing job. Even in a pinch hit, you did a great job today. Thank you so much. I'm so excited I can't wait till January. I love these sessions. So glad that Lucy is heading them up for us.
It's easy to be, go ahead.
I was going to say thank you, ditto.
Yeah, it's easy to be the host if you can get great people, and won't March be fabulous with Ron?
Yes.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments?
I enjoyed the whole session, Lucy, but you said something towards the end about, and I can't remember exactly what it was, appreciating something if you don't have the knowledge.
Right.
And I had an incident just this week where I was I was talking with a nurse practitioner, something about how my Apple Watch can do an ECG. And she said, oh, I don't trust technology. And she was taking my blood pressure at the time, which is a technological tool. And I come out of there and I come home and I said to Doug, I guess you just can't trust something you don't understand.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's along the same line. So I appreciated that. It was affirming. Yeah.
Well, that's part of our job, is to help them understand choice theory so they can trust it
Yeah.
because it works.
Yeah, we know that.
Well, we're 1 minute over, so I'm going to say any other comments, put them in the chat. We'll take a look at them. I want to remind you that in December, we're going to skip because it's the holiday week and we'll all be busy with our families and friends and neighbors. We'll come back in January, and a friend of mine, Kathy Lovett, is going to come in and talk to us about reality therapy and how she uses it in higher education. She's the director of health services at the medical school, University of Tennessee Medical School. So I think she'll be highly engaging and give you some delightful information as well. So we'll see you on the 4th Tuesday of January. And I'm not going to say the date because it's not in front of me. But everybody's got a calendar and you'll get a reminder. And thank you all for joining today, and we'll see you then.
Are
Bye.
these,
Lucy.
are these normally the second Tuesday?
The 4th Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday, okay. Thank